Hello, I am Pastor Charlee Blabey. This is Faith Support. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Psalms 46, verses 1 and 7. I remember as a kid watching a show in which a small child was standing up to a bully. The kid was scared to death and unsure as to what the end result would be. Would he get beat up? Would the bully back down and listen? Would he end up respected and left alone? As the kid approaches and slowly begins to stammer out what he has to say, he is surprised to discover that the bully is actually listening. What's more, he seems afraid, wide-eyed and shocked. Now, at first, you begin thinking that must be because he realizes the power that comes with someone standing up for what they believe in, standing up for themselves. But as the camera pans back, it becomes clear that what the bully is actually staring at is a group of the boy's friends who are standing behind him and sending the message loud and clear that he is not alone. There are other images that reflect this thought. Another such example is of a young cub roaring at an attacker, scaring it away, all the while failing to realize the mother lion is standing directly behind it. In our daily life, it can seem that we are often alone. This verse in particular alludes to the fact that trouble has come. The language used is military in nature. God is seen as our refuge, a place where we can run to, a very present help when trouble comes, the Lord of hosts, which is a term used to convey someone who is the presiding officer. But then it makes an interesting connection with that of Jacob. Why Jacob? In Genesis 32, verse 24, it says, Jacob was left alone. He had just sent his wives, his children, his servants away. Esau was coming for what Jacob could only imagine would be revenge. Esau had every reason to be angry. Jacob had stolen the blessing and the birthright. Esau was a fighter, a hunter, someone to fear. Jacob was not. Jacob was alone. When we experience trouble in our own lives, we often feel isolated and alone. A life-altering diagnosis, depression, a job loss, marital trouble, problems with family or children, and the list continues. And this can lead us to feel alone. Some of this is due to shame. What if others judge me? What if they look down at me or they pity me? Sometimes it's due to fear, or we don't want to risk hurting other people. If I keep this to myself, if I don't tell anyone else, then no one else has to worry. No one has to go through this with me. We tell ourselves that we're sparing them pain. Sometimes it's because we need time to process. For Jacob, it seems like it was a combination of all those things. He had sent his family away as a means of protecting them, but he was also ashamed. And he longed to spare others the pain of sitting with him in this time. But he wasn't alone. In the very next sentence, it says that a man shows up and begins wrestling with Jacob until daybreak. Jacob struggles and he fights for his life until he realizes that the person that he's wrestling against isn't even using his full strength. One touch from the stranger and Jacob's hip, it's dislocated. And it's at this point that Jacob learns a few important lessons. Number one, through his initial loneliness, he was actually able to meet God. And secondly, he was never actually alone. And third, it was only at this point of weakness that he was able to meet God. The question this leaves us with is this: in our troubles, in those moments where we feel alone, do we realize that our wrestling is not us standing alone, but that God is actually right there with us? That even in those moments where we feel alone, that God is often the closest, but we have a tendency to fight him as though he is the enemy, when in reality, he longs to walk beside us, to be our defense, our help in those times of trouble. I just invite you to pray with me now. Lord, in those moments of heartache and in those moments where we feel isolated and alone, I pray, Lord, that we wouldn't push you away, but Lord, that we would realize that you're standing there beside us and we would let you in. Amen.